Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, February 6th. This is just a kind of an update on the coronavirus. Really, it's an update on the people in Wuhan. I've been hearing rumors that people are being murdered and not even being given a chance to recover in Wuhan, and that they're claiming to save the rest of the world, they're going to sacrifice these people. I think that's called a holocaust last time I checked, or at least sure does resemble a holocaust. This is really disturbing, and I knew the moment that when that China trade deal was signed and nobody addressed or insisted on human rights being respected before we make any deals, I knew that something like this was going to happen. And sure as shit, immediately afterwards, this so-called new virus that just mysteriously came out of the wild, which, that's a lie. There was an advertisement for jobs in Wuhan to study this virus that came out of bats, and it goes into great detail about what kind of qualifications they were looking for. And it fits the virus exactly. This was intentionally manipulated by man. And I don't know if it was intentionally released or accidentally released, but why do we do that in the first place? Why is anybody even allowed to mess with biological warfare? It's evil. Anyways, so they released this virus on their whole community. Oddly enough, though, it seems like only people in China are dying. And I'm not hearing any reports of anybody else dying around the world. It is gradually spreading. It's slowly increasing. I have a feeling it's going to rapidly increase soon. But how does murdering a bunch of innocent people who do not deserve to be treated this way going to stop anything or change anything? It's not. They let it out. They didn't stop it in its tracks. They should have stopped it the day they knew it was released. They should have done everything they could to prevent it from spreading. Required everyone to stay in their houses. There's still people walking around outside even though they're under quarantine. They let it spread. It's intentional. They knew what they were doing. I don't buy that this was an accident or they just didn't know what they were doing. I think that this was their intention, and they're just pretending like it's an accident, and now they gotta sacrifice a few to save the mass. No. You don't do that. That's evil. You don't have the right to play God with people's lives. You give them as much comfort and supportive care as you can and pray that they recover. And if they don't and they pass on, then they pass on. Cut them off from society until they're recovered. Do what you can, but you can't just take people's lives like that and treat them like they're nothing. I don't know if this is true or not. I saw a video, and it sure looked like there were gunshots going off in this apartment building in Wuhan. And then all of a sudden, the medical team that was at this apartment building, dressed in hazmat suits, just completely covering themselves, are dragging these innocent human beings out of their homes like they're nothing. No respect for... Why are we doing business with China? We should not... The entire world should shut them off of any business at all. Shut them down and force them to stop treating their people like nothing. I mean, it's just evil and it's wrong. And I don't know what we're supposed to do about it. I'm just a simple person with a simple life. I don't have the ability to stand up for anybody. This is all I can think of. So I'm going to try to speak up this way and pray to God that somebody does something. I will also start pressuring the president and see why he is allowing this to happen and why our government is telling us that we have nothing to worry about and letting people continue to fly in and out of our country from countries that have this virus. It's been gradually increasing in the United States as well. Wuhan's not stopping anything. They're just murdering their people. That's all they're doing. So anyways, here's this article about it. Where did it go? Shoot. Hang on a second here. I had it up a second ago, but my screen made it disappear. One quick second, just hang in there. This is on Bloomberg News, by the way. So, even the crazy people on the left are seeing this as a problem. Yet I don't hear a single person screaming and crying and protesting out on the streets about any of this. So it says, China sacrifices a province to save the world from coronavirus. They're not saving the world. They're destroying the world by even messing with those biohazards and then allowing them to be released into the world. They're killing all of us. Hubei province has seen 97% of all deaths from the virus. Quarantine lockdown delayed key supplies from getting in. People are showing up at the hospital to be tested. They're trying to do what's right. And it doesn't seem to matter. They're being turned away. And now it sounds like they're killing them. Literally killing human beings. This is just evil and it's wrong. And I don't know how the world can just sit back and not say anything and not be raising all kinds of hell. Musician Zhang Yaru's grandmother died on Monday after slipping into a coma. She was repeatedly turned away from the hospital. Zhang Chen, a college graduate, is desperately seeking help for his mother. She has a high fever, but isn't strong enough to stand in line for hours to be tested for the virus raging through their city. On the front line, a 30-year-old respiratory doctor has slept only a few hours in 2 weeks. Scenes of chaos and despair are emerging daily from China's Hubei province, the landlocked region of 60 million people where the coronavirus, dubbed 2019 NCOV, standing for novel coronavirus, was first identified in December, and where it has since cut a wide, deadly swath. While cases have spread around the globe, the virus impact has been most keenly felt in Hubei, which has seen a staggering 97% of all deaths from the illness and 67% of all patients. And that's the other thing. Why are only people in China dying from this virus? Is this genetically manipulated towards these people? And even if they recover, is it even going to matter? It sounds like if there's an HIV virus mixed into this, or strain, or whatever it is, you probably don't actually recover from that. I don't know if it would make you continue to be contagious, or if you just will always have a lot of health problems. But I can't imagine you would be completely recovered, which I don't know. Anyways, the toll, which grows larger every day, reflects a local health system overwhelmed by the fast-moving alien pathogen, making even the most basic care impossible. Interesting wording they're using, alien pathogen. And also President Xi called it demon virus. Well, if you look biblically at Jesus' teachings and various warnings throughout the Bible, they talk about this very thing, and I think that the demon virus is precisely the kind of thing that we were being warned about biblically. So, anyways, it's also an ongoing illustration of the human costs extracted by the world's largest known quarantine, with China effectively locking down the region from January 23rd to contain the virus spread to the rest of the country and the world. But Hubei, known for its car factories and bustling capital, Wuhan, is paying the price. The mortality rate for coronavirus patients there, 3.1% versus 0.16% for the rest of China. And I'm sorry, one other thing is I kind of wonder, because the United States made China even out how they were spending their money, or how much money they were making off the United States. Trump said that he hit them pretty hard, and I think that this is China's way of making up for the cost that the United States cost them, and now they're asking us for money. No, I don't think that they should give them anything as long as they're going around murdering these people. I don't think we should be doing business deals with them, giving them help of any kind, unless they agree to treat their people like people. This is just so evil. If the province was not sealed off, some people would have gone all around the country to try to get medical help, and would have turned the whole nation into an epidemic-stricken area. Yeah, that's fair. It doesn't mean you have to kill them. According to Yang Gongwan, former Deputy Director General of China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The quarantine brought a lot of hardship to Hubei and Wuhan, but it was the right thing to do. No. Quarantine is the right thing to do. Murdering your people is wrong. It's like fighting a war, against Hitler. Some things are hard but must be done. I don't know. Sure sounds like Hitler. If any of you aren't aware of it, China partnered up with the Nazis. The Nazis are still, that's what we call our shadow government that we're all fighting against here in the United States and around the globe. Those are leftovers from the Nazis. They just kept their agenda going quietly behind the scenes. And now we're seeing what their intentions are. The Nazis were always about eugenics and weeding out the weak and the useless, or people they didn't consider worthy or useful. That's what their whole thing was about. So I can't help but think that that's exactly what's happening again. Wuhan, home to 11 million people. Excuse me. Is a second-tier Chinese city. All these people. Chinese city, meaning it's relatively developed, but still a step below China's. Excuse me. Trying not to cry. China's major metropolises. I don't know why I can't stop. Okay, sorry. China's major metropolises of Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou. It has well-regarded hospitals, but resources lag behind those of most prominent cities. Okay, but the United States, and I'm sure other people around the globe, are more than happy to help and supply people with what they need if they don't go around killing everybody and just pocketing the aid. In the early days of the virus spread, it's hard to read when your eyes are full of tears. Prevarication and delay by local officials has also allowed the pathogen to circulate more widely among an unsuspecting public. Concentrated death toll. 97% of deaths have been in Wuhan and the rest of Hubei. While doctors... Wait, let's take a look here. Jesus. While doctors first noticed the virus thought to have been passed from an animal to humans at a Wuhan food market in early December, and signs it was being transmitted among people were seen at the beginning of January, authorities still allowed large-scale public events to take place. The scale of the crisis only became fully apparent to the wider public in the days leading up to the start of China's annual Lunar New Year holiday on January 24th, as cases emerged elsewhere. Oh, I apologize. I have my significant other's niece. They're about to pull the plug on her respirator. She was found not breathing in her room, and no one knows how long she wasn't breathing for, but I guess they think she's brain dead, and she hasn't woke up after a week. Her mother just passed away after falling into a coma as well. All this death is really painful, and those two incidences of people I know, they have a muscular deficiency that can cause early death, heart attack, things like that, and development issues and stuff. So they say that that's what's causing their deaths. I'm finding it a little bit of a strange coincidence that they're both going to die within a few months of each other. And then his nephew also died from the same thing a couple of years back. So it's just very strange. And now all these people in China, this is a nightmare. I'm scared. It came like a sudden downpour that caught Wuhan off guard, said Zheng Yan, a professor at the School of Medicine at Wuhan University of Science and Technology. The 110 intensive care unit beds in the city designated for virus patients had already been filled many times over when China announced on January 23rd that it would take the unprecedented step of sealing off Wuhan, preventing possible pathogen carriers from traveling out, but also preventing most people from coming in. The quarantine soon widened to encompass nearly the entire province. I'm never going to forgive these people. This is just so evil. In the chaotic, confused days that followed, which coincided with China's week-long national holiday, the quarantine restrictions, coupled with an already overwhelmed city infrastructure, meant that supplies of essential medical equipment, including masks, protective suits, and high-grade disinfectant, were slow to get to Wuhan's hospitals. We were advised to use masks, gloves, protective clothing in a thrifty manner and avoid drinking water so we would not have to go to the bathroom, which required a change of protective clothing, said one frontline doctor working at the Third People's Hospital of Hubei province, who declined to give her name for fear of reprisal. That's the other thing too, is it's also, I guess, really strong in people's feces. So, those of you pooping on the sidewalk in California, maybe you should think a little bit about what you're doing, because you're going to be just as guilty and just as evil for allowing that to spread disease and stuff, and it's just wrong. Ding Zi, whose family owns an eyewear company located in another part of China, said that their delivery of medical goggles to Wuhan was delayed by 10 days. We sent the supply on January 25th, and they arrived at hospitals on February 2nd. All deliveries from outside to the province were slowed by the strict quarantine procedures. So why can't you fly them in and drop them down for people? Fly a helicopter over there. It can't be that freaking difficult. Liars. while China's government activated 8 cargo carriers on February 2nd to ship in 58 tons of supplies to Wuhan, and donations are starting to flow in from all over the world. The shortages in those critical days, combined with the virus's rapid spread as the surge in patients saw hospitals turn people away for lack of space, had devastating consequences. You think? Between January 23rd and February 4th, the number of officially recorded deaths from the coronavirus in Hubei grew by over 25 times to nearly 500. Last time I checked, the total number of deaths, at least around the world, I don't know, it was almost up to 600. Which we know that that's not an accurate number because they have just incinerated a bunch of people's bodies without any autopsy or anything to show what they died from. And then they've turned all these other people away, so they haven't been able to confirm people's cases either. So people are suspecting those numbers are way off. Scores more likely went unrecorded because they weren't admitted to hospital in time to be diagnosed. Another 2/3 of cases are in Hubei. Another 1/3 are in the rest of China, and less than 1% are elsewhere. So there's 231 cases around the world, and then the rest are 7,646 in China and 16,678 in Hubei. And I guarantee the number's way higher than that because when it first started, they were reporting near 100,000 people. So that number doesn't look right. And then they were saying there was a handful that recovered. Well, how do we know they're not still contagious after they recover? Are they just being released, or is somebody making sure they don't have the virus anymore? Zhang Yaru's grandmother was turned away from hospital at the end of January because her symptoms were mild. She slipped into a coma shortly after and died without being diagnosed. She didn't manage to say a word to us before she died. She probably had no idea what happened, said Zhang, a native of Yizhou, a smaller city adjacent to Wuhan that's also being quarantined. Sorry, Yizhou is the smaller city. Our family is now driven into a corner, desperate. All my family members are potentially infected, and my grandmother is showing the same symptoms. While virus cases within Hubei province are still growing by the thousands every day, infections are slowing to the rest of China. An early sign that the aggressive contaminant may have worked to limit the coronavirus spread nationally and globally. I don't think so. I think it just slowed it down a little bit because there were less people spreading it around. But I think over time we're going to keep seeing the numbers double. That's the way it's looking here in the United States. So I don't know. That's what they sure didn't. Okay. The quarantine was the right thing to do for the good of the wider population, said the doctor of the Third People's Hospital. Well, yeah, it's great if you're not murdering these people. Some may say Hubei was sacrificed, but it did effectively stem the spread elsewhere. No, it didn't. It let a bunch of people travel around the world before they even shut their stuff down or started quarantining people. And then after they quarantined people, they still were letting people go out and go to the store and stuff. Why not just deliver whatever people need to their front doors and make them stay indoors until it passes? But no, every time you let somebody out, every time you make an exception, you're passing it out a little bit more and a little bit more. And unless these other countries can stop it in its tracks, we're all screwed. Now, I know that hundreds of thousands of people die every year of different flus and viruses, but this is different. They don't know what to expect out of it. It sounds like they expect it to keep changing, and getting stronger and having new effects on people. I mean, at first they said it was airborne, then they said it was human to human, and now they're saying you just have to be really intimate with the person to be affected. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. And that's a stupid thing to say, because now you're going to cause all kinds of fights and problems in people's marriages, because they're all going to think that their spouse was screwing around with somebody. Sorry, this is so upsetting. The quarantine in Hubei dwarfs previous efforts in other parts of the world. In Liberia in 2014, an impoverished neighborhood of about 70,000 people was shut off during an Ebola outbreak, triggering violent riots. As the lockdown continues with no end in sight, it's raising ethical and legal questions. You think? Holy shit, man, that was 5 years ago and they've still got them quarantined? This just doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't they have, in 5 years, they couldn't medicate people, give them vaccines, whatever they got to do, and get it under control? That's just disturbing. As the lockdown continues with no end in sight. Yeah, and also, if you watch the movie, I think it was called Project Eugenics, they show specifically that all these viruses being released on different parts of the world, seeming to be targeted at third world countries and weaker cultures and stuff. It shows the very beginning of this movie, it shows clips of real life clips of all these virus outbreaks. Well, this movie was made at least in 2014. I don't know. It was released at least 5 years ago, and none of this had happened yet. But the whole movie was about a virus situation, exactly like we're seeing right now today with the coronavirus in China and highly populated areas, and breaking out and causing a bunch of... It was an intentional thing put on by people like George Soros and stuff in the movie, with the intention of saving humanity from itself and overpopulation. And they were going to release all these viruses over these cities using drones and just wipe out a whole bunch of people, and then whoever was left standing would be the new population. I don't know. Anyways, it pretty much looked exactly like what we're seeing now, and that tells me that this was already planned, including the Ebola outbreak. As the lockdown continues with no end in sight, blah, blah, medical supplies The lockdown may be necessary to contain the spread of the virus, but you have to ensure there's enough medical resources to meet the demand for care in those cities, says Zhang Qianfan, a professor of Peking University Law School. The lockdown shouldn't mean the city gets deserted and people are left to survive or die on their own. Yeah, well, it sounds a bit like that's what's going on. Top priority: reports of potentially preventable deaths in Hubei, exacerbated by the quarantine restrictions, have been coursing through China, said Yanzhong Wang, director of the Center for Global Health Studies at Seton Hall University in New Jersey, and a senior fellow for global health at the Council on Foreign Relations. And again, CFR, that was developed by the Nazis. This is the Fourth Reich, people. Comparing the draconian measures in Hubei to the mass surveillance prevalent in China that would seem intolerable to many in the West, he said. If you ask Chinese people, 8 out of 9 will say they can live with that. Wait a minute, say that again. Comparing the draconian measures to Hubei to the mass surveillance prevalent in China that would seem intolerable to many in the West. Oh, okay. They can live with it because they don't know what it's like to have privacy. In the days after the quarantine order, China's government sent medical assistance into the province while maintaining restrictions on people leaving. Let's take a quick look at this. Maybe. They're not going to let us look. Yep, they're censoring the people. I mean, if you have to censor the people, you must be doing something wrong. More than 8,000 medical workers from across the country have gone into Hubei, mostly to the 27 hospitals in Wuhan designated for treating the coronavirus patients. The rest have fanned out to smaller cities nearby. 2 new hospitals with 2,600 beds in total were completed in 10 days, built by more than 2,000 migrant workers, while stadiums, offices, and hotels are being converted into isolation units. So if they're migrant workers, where are they going when they're done working after breathing in this virus? But hospitals in Hubei are still short of supplies, said a doctor working in the testing department at the Wuhan Tongji Hospital. He also declined to give his name on concern he'd face backlash. You think? That's the hospital? That doesn't look like it's set up to help people. I don't see any breathing apparatuses or any sanitary measures whatsoever. I mean, these people are all being clustered into one room. You should be dividing. There should be dividers up to keep them from passing their germs around back and forth. That's just going to make the virus stronger, I would think. Oh my God. All these people, I bet you not one of those people are coming out of there alive. Things are improving, but we are really overloaded and running diagnostic tests 24/7 and still struggle to complete them. The doctor said on Tuesday, I think we have not reached the peak of infections yet. Maybe we should just take out the people responsible for this and get it under control ourselves. For those seeking help and medical care in Hubei, resignation has set in. There has been markedly little unrest in the province despite the circumstances. The idea of sacrificing oneself for a greater national goal is deeply embedded in the Chinese culture and is invoked by the country's leaders in times of hardship. Liars! The Chinese people are begging for help, telling us they don't have the ability to fight back, but they're censoring those videos. People are, queuing for 8 hours just to get tested for the coronavirus, said the college graduate John Chen, who's 23. His feverish mother is yet to be tested. At first I was upset that the hospitals and officials I called for help weren't willing to do their job, but later I realized that it's not that they are unwilling to help, but that everywhere is way too short of resources. I don't blame anyone, because if you grow up in China, you learn that's how the system works. That doesn't make it okay. It doesn't have to work that way. We don't have to do that out here to our people. Why do they think they need to do it out there to their people? It's so disturbing. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that update, although that article was a bit misleading. They didn't say a word about the fact that they're shooting people and dragging people out of their homes. Why not just let them stay in their homes and provide them with supplies and require them not to leave until they're all clear? Shouldn't be that difficult. This is an excuse to get their population under control. If everybody would quit manipulating everything when it comes to the population and nature, and quit manipulating nature and genetically modifying everything and fucking with our weather and poisoning our water and our land, and nature will balance the population out all on her own. But if you try to play God and you start manipulating things in order to balance the population out, it's going to backfire and nature will come back and take you out. So, anyways, with that being said, everybody stay healthy, sanitize, try not to interact with other people too much until we know that we're all safe. But from what I understand, this is going to go into spring, and according to predictive programming that's been inserted into various shows and movies and stuff, they expect millions of people to die by the time this is over. So God bless you all and good luck.